Welcome to the Powered by Age, Age-Friendly City Zoomcast reality-style podcast.
We are movers and shakers, shaking up the old notion of silent, helpless, invisible seniors.
This is a new series of podcasts funded by the City of Vancouver and the 411 Senior Center Society.
As PBA AFC ambassadors, we
raise awareness,
share our original stories and poems,
inform, advocate, and involve seniors in discussing important social issues.
In short, these podcasts will help us,
you, in creating an age-friendly city for Vancouver today,
tomorrow the world.
You can hear us everywhere podcasts are heard. Good morning and welcome to Powered by Age, a senior-led podcast program sponsored by the 411 Senior Center with support from the City of Vancouver. I'm Charlotte Farrell, your host. Today we're going to have a fantastic panel discussion on the digital divide. Penny Goldsmith is going to be the facilitator for that. But first, as we usually do, I'm going to ask our podcasters to introduce themselves and give their 15 seconds of fame intro. Sylvie?
Hi, I'm Sylvie Anderson. I'm from the West End Seniors Network and a virtual student at the moment.
Leslie?
Yes, I'm Leslie Hebert. I live in New Westminster. I am a member of Century House and I've been in the virtual world for many years. I actually teach English as a second language online to Japanese students.
Thank you. Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Hogan. I'm from Vancouver, Van East, and I'm part of Quirky, the Queer Imaging and Writing Collective for Elders, an activist, ballroom dancer, and that's it.
Okay, Neil?
I'm Neil Ryan. I'm an author because I paid to get published, so there you go. Also recently won a prize for a short story, and I write a lot of short stories. So
shared a lot of your short stories with us. Chris?
I'm Chris, and I'm with Quirky, the same as Pat, and also a member of Britannia Community Center.
Joel?
Justin, I'm here, yeah. I'm Joel. I'm one of the founders of Podstream Studios, and Luke and I are here in technical support, as well as maybe chiming in with a couple of hot takes on.
Luke?
Hey, I'm Luke Schuss, and I'm finally recovered from some horrible food poisoning, so good to be here.
And now I'd like to introduce Penny Goldsmith. Penny's a longtime anti-poverty activist and the author of Storming the Digital Divide, the POVnet story. She's been involved with helping to provide internet access to marginalized people in BC for many years. Penny's a member of the 411 Senior Center and is on the Senior Issues Committee, where issues about the digital divide and its impact on seniors in the Lower Mainland often surface. She's also on the Office of the Seniors Advocate Council of Advisors. Penny will introduce our famous panel for today.
Thanks, Charlotte. And thank you all for being here. To add to Charlotte's introduction, I confess I'm a completely self-taught internet geek who learned early that I only wanted and needed to know a technology so I could use it for social justice work that I'd been engaged with for many years. I'd like to invite two guests we have in the audience today with particular experience of the digital divide, Nicky Dunlop and Kate Fisk, to briefly introduce themselves before we start. Nicky?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm Nicky Dunlop. I'm the Executive Director of POVnet. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, POVnet's a nonprofit organization that was started in 1997. We have a website with a Find an Advocate map that helps match community advocates and other poverty law services with those in need of things such as tenancy issues, accessing provincial and federal benefits, family law matters, debt problems, things like that. We also support those advocates and lawyers and frontline workers with the tools that they need to provide that service. We've built an online community where they can communicate and collaborate on projects, and we provide training for them to build both legal and tech skills so they can work more efficiently and effectively. We also act as conveners and facilitators, bringing people together to work on systemic issues and push for change. The digital divide is an issue around, and issues around connectivity are an example of that. My interests in this area are primarily around access to information and access to justice. I believe everyone in BC must have access to the internet regardless of their economic position. And that government and justice systems cannot move services online without ensuring first that everyone has access to them. I think these last 6 months have shone a bright light on that issue. And I think this is a great time to push for change around that. So I'm very grateful to be part of this conversation and excited to be here.
Thank you, Nikki. And Kate.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate Fisk and I'm the newest addition to the POVnet team. I'm their online community manager and I started almost a year ago as they transitioned from an online community platform that they'd been using for almost 20 years into a new platform and kind of system for the anti-poverty online community. And I'm certainly interested in the topic of connectivity, but I also really love doing online community work, and I do that both in my role with POVnet, but also in my spare time. I do the same thing. So, and I love working with people in relation to tech and learning new digital skills. So I'm really excited for this panel, and thank you for having me today. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Welcome, Anne and Mary from Bella Coola. You got here. My experience of what happens when a general conversation takes place about problems older adults face when dealing with technology is that seniors are often stereotyped into a box of they don't know how to use the internet or computers or online networks. All we need is training to make it possible. My experience tells me that it is rarely the reason that seniors have trouble getting online. Today, we're going to hear from a group of experts who will talk about what the real issues are and some things we can do to address these issues. Once they've all spoken, they'll speak for about 5 minutes each. There will be time for you to ask questions and share your stories about the digital divide. We'll start with Patsy Craig. Patsy's on the board of 411 Senior Centers and is an information and referral volunteer with 411. Most of the seniors she works with have multiple concerns concerning accessing resources, services, perhaps health, mobility concerns. And Patsy helps them to prioritize, access, and navigate and complete the forms, systems, and telephone calls. Patsy, can you tell us some of the stories you've been hearing from seniors who contact 411 about the difficulties they have accessing the internet and how it affects their lives, especially during the pandemic?
Thank you. Yes, I hope I can impart the concerns of many of the seniors that I am, introduced to and working with. And my intent is, of course, always not to be doing for them, but to try and activate them and get involved themselves and how. But it's primarily how to do it. How to approach some of their problems, and how to access and do as much as they can on their own. But we also have a number of seniors who are quite isolated, have socially isolated, and this COVID has really impacted them, and as well as just general, seniors in general. Some of the things that they are telling me that, they're not connected and they're wanting to connect with whether it's their neighbors, but, dealing with the outside community as well. They're frightened when they have to deal with government issues, for example, or how to access their benefits, how to access services and other resources. And some of the things that we're coming up with most certainly is, of course, number one is access to digital equipment, technological equipment, including telephones, especially with the cell phone. Accessing all the different services and even their neighbors, their friends, and relatives. Access, for example, during COVID, of course, the library has closed down for those who have an interest, or they're not opening sufficiently enough for our seniors who really rely on, for the seniors that really rely on the libraries, and other community resources such as 411 had also access to some computers and some training if they wish. That is no longer available to them at this time, during this time, unless they are, that's primarily, is the access first. A lot of it is, I think, also the cost of services and equipment. It's just prohibitive in the cost of getting on internet, the cost of the equipment itself, whether it's a computer, a tablet, the telephone, especially a cell phone, things of that nature. On a monthly basis, that takes a good chunk of their low, their budget. A lot of them also have, the fear, if you like, the fear of or anxiety around, utilizing computerization. They want that personal contact and connection. The voice is even better than, having to deal through a screen or a, voice as well. But they want to talk to a person. They want to feel like hands-on. There's also, literacy issues as well. And I'm not even talking about language literacy, as there is that definitely, but also the literacy around, technology and what's the jargon that we use in the community as well. Definitely, particularly if they didn't use or utilize a computer, perhaps in their in their work life or in their schooling. I sure didn't. I did most certainly in my work life, but very few of us will have been introduced to computers and other technology early on in our lives. And a lot of those who might have had some connection was often, you just went in and you kind of tabulated. All you had to do was just fill in the blanks, and it was all set up for you. You didn't have to do any searching or anything. It was trained. It was kind of by rote. I wanted to talk, about the closures and things, but also I wanted to also bring in the issues of, and I'm putting it in the digital, is the phones, the phone system. In dealing with most of our agencies and organizations, almost even companies, and definitely our government. And seniors are really taken aback by, by the telephone system that we have in place. There's a lot of nattering going on. There's a lot of information, while you're on wait, for example. And there's so much information that's thrown at you. You don't know push what button for what. You've lost all track. It's really, when you want to speak with all you want to do is just say, to speak to an agent, press 1. You may be on hold, but at least you're eventually going to get there. The other way is extremely daunting, and they're hanging up before they get going.
Thanks, Patsy. This is a great beginning, and we will keep this conversation going. And there'll be questions, I'm sure, from people once we've all spoken. I'd like to introduce next Mary Mak, who is an elder in Bella Coola, who's on the new Chilpal board of NAW, and also giving input in the discussion is Ann Fletcher, the anti-poverty advocate at the Bella Coola Legal Advocacy Program. I'd like to just start with a quote that I got read on Twitter last week. Dr. Cindy Blackstone, who's the executive director of the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society, tweeted last week that only 24% of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit homes and businesses have broadband access. For those of you thinking remoteness is the reason, the International Space Station, which orbits 400 kilometers above Earth and has a population of 6 people, has excellent service. Mm-hmm. Mary, welcome. And I wanted to start by asking you, how does the lack of internet services in your region affect how elders in particular in your community access services and other resources that are only available online? Oops, can't hear you. just check the, just a second, you've got a, and do you perhaps have a speaker on, or do you have a headset? We can see you. You can hear us, obviously.
Did she enable computer audio?
Yeah, if you can, did you enable the audio? You're not on mute. Any suggestions from our experts? Erin or Viveka?
Maybe try leaving the meeting and joining again.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Usually there's an option to phone in as well. If
Yeah, I
she
know,
wanted to
I'd
use
rather,
that.
yeah. Okay, so you can try leaving and coming back, Anne? Yeah, I know, yeah. Okay, we'll, we're going to leave. Anne, can you hear us? We're going to leave you for now and see whether you can figure it out, and we'll come back to you, okay? Okay, all right. David, you're next up. David's been a board member of 411 Senior Center since 2014. In recent years at 411, David has participated in programs that provide refurbished laptop computers free for low-income members, and he is currently advocating for low-cost home internet access for seniors on the Guaranteed Income Supplement. David, talk about your current project. Okay. David?
Well, thank you for asking me to participate. As Patsy mentioned, you know, internet services are extremely important to our members, and cost of equipment. Yes, cost of equipment and access are really two barriers. About 2 years ago, I learned about a program that provided free laptop computers for schools and charitable organizations called Reuse Tech BC, and it has some connection with TELUS. So I applied for laptop computers, and so far I've been able to get about 40 laptop computers that we've been given to our members. Some of our members knew what to do with them, and so we just gave it to them. Some of them wanted some training, and so far we've been, you know, getting great reports, and the demand for these laptop computers is greater than we can actually provide. We also were able to provide low-cost desktop computers from this organization. So if you want to know more about this organization, I can forward their internet link to Penny, and she can send it to the group. In any event, at the same time, even though many of our members were very pleased to have the laptop computers, they could not afford home internet access because many of them, you know, are on low income or guaranteed income. So early in July, we 411 sent letters to several of the internet providers, Shaw, Rogers, and TELUS, to ask if they would be willing to provide low-cost internet to low-income seniors. And we received a reply from TELUS that they do have a program called TELUS for Good for persons with disabilities and low-income families, but they had not yet been providing it to seniors on GIS. In any event, they agreed to a meeting with us. So in July, we had a Zoom meeting with several representatives of TELUS, and part of the outcome of this meeting is that they asked us to make a proposal to institute a pilot project for members of 411 that would provide low-cost internet services of $10 a month for some of our members who are on GIS. So we provided a submission on July 30th, which we asked TELUS to institute this program for up to 15 of our members as a pilot project, and we provided statements from 7 or 8 of our members about how this low-cost internet or affordable internet would significantly improve their lives. So we sent in our proposal on July 30th, and we have not yet received a reply. So obviously it was August and Labor Day, so we're expecting to hear from TELUS very soon about whether this program will go ahead. So that's our participation so far.
Thanks, David. That's great. Okay, now Anne, do we have you back in? You were here on the phone, yeah? While you're coming in, okay, let's just try. Let's wait and see for a second, see whether they're coming. A moment of silence. One of the reasons we wanted to have Anne and Mary come in from Bella Coola is exactly because it's a, it just shows what the additional difficulties are on when you're coming from up north in Bella Coola. Okay, you're in? Great, we can see you. Good. Okay, maybe you should go off the visual, Anne.
Okay. Hello.
Hi. Okay, we got you. Mary, would you tell us something about how the lack of internet services is affecting elders in your community?
Well, we really don't have too much services for anybody here, the elders, I mean. They don't have anybody to help them. We have nobody to teach us here. And we just depend on our children to be able to put anything on for us through the computer. So most of us here still use paper for phone bills, light bills, and things like that. They tell us they're going paperless, but we don't have any access. Oh, there's something binging here. But we don't have access to computers. We have so much trouble with internet, as you noticed there. And if we're going to have anything with the government, we just depend on our, as I said, our children to do it for us. But so we're becoming dependent on them, and we don't like it. We've been trying not to. So I know in my case, I have just don't do it if I can't get it done myself, and then my daughter has to fix everything up for me.
Excuse me for 1 second, Mary. Anne, if you turn off your audio, it'll stop the echo. There's an echo, Mary. You're coming in twice.
Yeah, I'm muted. Should I just mute
No, just you need to, maybe you need to, you need to turn, we've got two things going at once. So maybe turn off the Zoom, like the visual. I need some help here.
It's because the phone is picking up the computer's audio. So if she turns off the audio on the laptop or the computer, then it will pick up the audio.
Okay, did you hear that, Anne? Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Erin. Okay. So Mary. Oh, that gets even worse. Ouch. There, okay. Mary, Mary got muted. Can we unmute the phone? Whoever did that?
Yeah, I muted it because it was echoing.
I know. Can you turn it on again? The phone, please.
I hit the button, but she has to approve it.
Mary, can you hear me? If you click on *6, it should unmute you. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Hi, Mary. Again, sorry about that.
Okay. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, we're still echoing, but I think we'll just go with it. Okay, we can hear you. So.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you were saying that
technology in Bella Coola is really bad. We have a lot of problems with internet, with cell phone, so we don't use it a lot. And we haven't had it yet. We don't have fiber optic, and hopefully we'll get it within the next 5 years. But we have absolutely no income to help us here. We only get our checks once a month, and then everything has to be paid then. And then with groceries and things, because we're so isolated here, the prices have come up a lot, and we just are really struggling here. We've had to depend a lot on other people, hoping that they'll help us out. And we have had some people bring us vegetables and fresh vegetables, and we couldn't get any wild meat yet because it's not the season. So we just sort of have to depend on what we've got. And I know some of the others are really they're suffering, and we can't go out and visit with them. We can't check on them because a lot of them, as you know, won't talk on the phone unless somebody will answer it for them. They're afraid of all the technology, and we can't go and talk to them, so it makes it hard. And money-wise, they are suffering. So prices have come up so much in the stores that the things that they did depend on being able to buy, they just can't afford it anymore. So it makes it really hard for them.
Thank you, Mary. I'm glad that you were able to talk to us finally to get through, because and I think that this is actually a good example of how difficult it is sometimes, the connections. But this has been. I'm glad to have heard your story. Thank you.
Could I add one thing?
Yeah, sure. But Anne.
Yeah.
Turn off your computer.
Turn it right off?
Well, turn off the speaker. It's the speaker that's the problem. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, just get away from it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so
join the
I
echo.
want to let people know that we can't get any of these like TELUS free or cheaper deals for elders because TELUS has no internet in here. And then when I also see like people at Supplement maybe getting assistance financially with internet, and none of that is available here. So if you read the fine print, it's not available to remote communities. So that's an additional hardship as far as us trying to access things. And there's no fiber optics, so there's no unlimited internet, and it's quite expensive. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Yes, and it's yeah, and stay on the line, okay? Because there'll be some questions afterwards.
Okay.
Viveka. Viveka is the coordinator of BC Poverty Reduction Coalition and is a passionate advocate for reducing poverty. She has lived experience of it herself. She's a community organizer. And Viveka, what happens when people can't afford internet services, especially when public computers are not available in libraries, senior centers, and community centers during the pandemic?
Well, thank you so much, Penny, for asking that question and having me here. I'm just so excited to have this opportunity to learn and listen to all of you and to really gather so much valuable insight into how this issue impacts seniors and the diversity of communities throughout BC. So thank you so much. I guess what I wanted to share today is that throughout the pandemic, since the very beginning, since it really hit in March, a diversity of our coalition members, communities throughout BC have brought this issue to the Poverty Reduction Coalition. And so listening to all that feedback from Indigenous on and off reserve communities, from the settlement and newcomer serving organizations and communities, youth, children and families trying to access education, so really broad diversity. You know, we know the extent to which the pandemic has revealed the digital divide. And so since June, the coalition, after we convened to talk about priorities during the pandemic, this emerged as a very, very strong theme through all of our conversations about what should be prioritized at this time. So I convened a working group and we've been developing an ask, a bigger picture policy ask that really gets at this issue. And you know, what we've heard from a diversity of communities is that, maybe I can start with the Poverty Reduction Coalition has a human rights foundation to all that we do, all the advocacy and all the policy that we recommend. So we're looking at this issue from a human rights perspective. And in 2016, the United Nations did declare access to the internet a human right and amended the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And that same year, the CRTC declared access to the internet a basic service in Canada. So we have a foundation there looking at it from a human rights perspective. And what's really come forward from the community and from everybody is that it is about, there's the right that we all have to connect with community and family and to access all the services that have now shifted online, but also the internet further protects our access to other fundamental rights, like our right to access healthcare with mental health services and so many telehealth in rural communities, and our right to access education in all its forms. Higher education is solely online. We know many families, the children can't go back to school or choose not to go back to school. So looking at it from that framework, and then the other really important piece is the impact of the BC First Nations Technology Council on our ask, which is really looking at it from the perspective of spectrum sovereignty and UNDRIP, and how we can prioritize on and off reserve communities and prioritize the connectivity as well as the affordability issue. So to go back to answering your question after that preamble, absolutely it's affordability that has been brought forward. So this forms the basis of our basic ask, which is for $10 a month internet for everybody in British Columbia below the market basket measure, so below our poverty line. And that would include all low-income seniors and any seniors who access the GIS. Our poverty reduction strategy that we have in place, we have an opportunity to really make a case to our provincial government that this is an essential service and thousands of British Columbians are shut out. And now this can deepen inequities because so many are left behind when it comes to accessing everything online. So that's our first ask. And then the second piece is $10 a month high-speed internet access for everybody accessing education in British Columbia. And I wanted to answer your question, Penny, something that really came through to us was from Mosaic and the newcomer community about settling seniors and their access to ESL classes online, and the access that they need to community and connections, and even to their, the managers and directors that are facilitating their access to so many other services. So our ask around education includes not just higher education and secondary and elementary, but all forms of education, whether that's somebody completing their grade 12 certificate or accessing, government provided ESL classes, and to catch all of the educational opportunities that seniors are in need. It's already been summarized here so eloquently around by David and others around also the access to technology. That when we talk about internet access, of course, we need to talk about the technology and the devices that we need for everybody to achieve unlimited access. So we want to advocate for a much larger publicly funded, publicly provided kind of technology fund that people who are below the poverty line, low-income folks, including all low-income seniors, could apply to. So building on that fund that David mentioned. And the third piece is to increase training for all, and of course to have targeted, because we know during the pandemic, online safety, online crime has increased, child sex exploitation has increased, and so we want much more publicly funded, universally accessible training for safety, security, and privacy for all of us to develop those digital literacy skills collectively. So the one last point I wanted to make is that when we look at the federal program that's just targeting low-income families, it's a very limited program, and then we look at what TELUS has ruled out, our vision is for publicly funded, publicly provided internet service. So the longer-term piece is really looking at it as a universal basic service. So when we develop these piecemeal programs together, grandparents and seniors and families and everybody who is in need to have that access, not to necessarily prioritize just communities on disability or any other group. So I think I'll probably stop there. We have, we're ready to bring this ask to government and make this case, because we feel that, so it'd be really fantastic to have the ongoing input of a number of the organizations and individuals here on further building this policy to make sure that we really meet the needs of seniors.
Thank you, Viveka, that's great. Last in our group, we have one of the things that the purposes of this podcast is to give us some tools to engage with governments and organizations who have the resources to do something about the digital divide. Erin Knight will suggest some actions we can take. Erin's a digital rights campaigner at Open Media. Are you there still, Erin?
I am. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me here. First, I'll just give a little bit of a background so everyone can understand where Open Media is coming from and why our community approaches this issue the way that we do and how you can get involved. But, as everyone's already made abundantly clear in this call, seniors across many walks of life have been left behind for years when it comes to accessing affordable and good quality internet. That's true more than ever, especially right now during the pandemic. And yet basically nothing has been done by our federal leaders since the spring to rapidly address the problem. The government, in my opinion, has really dropped the ball on this in more ways than one. Their approach back when the pandemic started should have been relatively straightforward. At minimum, they should have finally released the funds that they already had set aside back in 2019 to get everyone, especially seniors, connected right now. And in fact, actually, the Minister of Rural Economic Development, Mary Mak, her mandate is universal internet. She said back in June that applications for this funding from 2019 would be opening, and I quote, in the coming days. But it's now, 3 months after that quote. And it's 6 months since the pandemic began and nothing has happened. So far, the government really hasn't made good on even that simple promise from last year, let alone made any new pandemic-specific moves to close the digital divide for seniors. Purely on affordability, though, they finally moved things in the opposite direction of what we want. So just a couple of weeks ago, Innovation Minister Navdeep Bains, he made a decision on internet wholesale rates, prioritizing profits for telecom giants over the well-being of Canadians. And that's actually already making internet prices even more expensive as we speak. So for seniors who are living on a fixed income, or any small variation in price there can have a big impact. And if you ask me, I think the federal government has seriously let seniors down, especially lower income seniors. But with all that, I do have some good news. The open media community has really been fighting back. Our active campaigns right now are aimed at government officials and representatives who are responsible for fixing Canada's internet and getting seniors online with affordable access. And so if you're fired up about this, I want you to take action with us. And I can tell you how. We're going to be reading out a couple of website addresses. So if you'd like to just write them down, or you may want to grab a pen and a piece of paper and a pen, I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. But first off, so you can head to openmedia.org/getcanadaconnected. And there you can sign our petition asking federal government to release a plan to connect our communities right now. And that is openmedia.org/getcanadaconnected. And if you have a story to tell about bad, expensive, or non-existent internet during the pandemic, which I know many of you do, you can also go to openmedia.org/dearmariammonsef. And there you can submit your story, and we'll plaster it, publicly all over social media. And that's going to help pressure Minister Monsef to actually act on this issue. And again, that one is openmedia.org/dearmariammonsef. And if you have trouble with those URLs, that's totally okay. You can just head to openmedia.org. That's our main website. And if you click on campaigns, you'll find everything you need right there. And then also, if you're going to head to our website, you might just want to keep an eye out for some of our brand new campaigns that are coming out very, very soon, fighting for affordable internet access. Those will be very exciting, I think, for all of you. And I think everyone who's listening today will really find that interesting. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Erin. Now we've got a lot to do. Now we have 10 or 15 minutes left for questions. I'm going to hand over the hosting to Charlotte. And if you have a question or would like to make a comment, put up your hand like this, and then she will see you and she will keep track. Okay.
Okay.
So, and then those and you can actually you can wave, but then we can get on the phone, right? You've got both things going. So.
Hey, I'd just like to say thank you to the panel for the way that you succinctly identified all those issues. And they are definitely things that people within our Powered by Age podcast have brought up. We had about 44 people that were recruited in January for the program. And tearfully, some weeks we talk to people who just aren't able to connect because they can't afford the internet. They have the internet, but they have an email address, but they do not have the internet. And we know that this type of communication has been something that helps prevent loneliness and is one of the things that just connects the connectivity. So thank you. And we'll be urging people to get on those campaigns to make the government hold up its promises and to do other things so that everyone is connected. If we can connect people in space, definitely we can connect people across the country. Okay. Comments? Pat, did you have a comment? Unmute yourself. Or a thought.
Not at the moment. There's a lot there to absorb. I think I'll just rather listen and hear what other people have to say at the moment.
Okay, it's like an auction, so if you shake your head or move.
Oh, okay.
Joe, what do you think about these issues? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on these because I just kind of came out of a meeting with some of these similar discussions relating to my boss's lab that he's starting up in Carleton regarding Indigenous entrepreneurship and leadership, and questions of what problems are being addressed in the communities. It's come up. So I wasn't expecting this conversation to continue in here, but I'm taking it all into account and having a call with him right after. So I'm just processing it all. It's interesting, the overlap between what's happening remotely in actual remote communities and now remotely in our own cities, because we have to be separated. So it's, you know, the fact that we're dealing with a similar type of problem, even though the distance geographically isn't necessarily there. But if we can solve the problems in one context, hopefully we can do it on the other. Even though there are obviously differences between getting broadband to reach out to those places. So that's just kind of my thoughts right now.
Is there another? Sylvie, what do you think? You have to unmute you.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have questions for Erin on this open media, the campaigns. I'm really interested in that because frequently when I get pissed off about issues and then ask myself, well, what can I do about it? I draw a blank. So, and it seems that whatever I decide to do, just to do something, it lacks a lot of clout because I'm doing it individually, and so to do it collectively probably would be much more efficient and much more worthwhile. So can you give me kind of a brief overview, Erin, of what kind of campaigns? Is it sort of mainly letter writing, or because I think a lot of people too, when they're in the position to speak for or about issues in which they believe, don't really know where to start. And I think that that's true of like local issues in Vancouver, going to city council. How do you do that? How do you get on the agenda? What do you say to make the most impact? So those are the kind of questions I have. If you want to act, if you want to do something, how do you do it collectively? Is it mainly by letter writing, in which case often the letter is provided for you, I think, and you just, it's a template. But you know, if you want to go in person, those kinds of things. What types of campaigns do you run?
Sorry, I turned off my video just to preserve audio quality. Those are all very, very great points that you raised, and that's something I think that everyone would probably benefit from learning a little bit more about in all walks of life. But you're entirely correct when you say that collective action really has that greater clout, because you know we are up against telecommunications companies that have the ear of our ministers and have the ear of our representatives, and they have much more power than the individual person does. And that's something that the open media community, I think, really harnesses well, is all of the folks who are all fired up about an issue, just regular people like you or I, and bringing them together to collectively speak out about an issue to our government or to whoever the campaign is targeting. So when it comes to different kinds of actions that you can take with our organization, we do really try to vary it, so you do have different options when it comes to how much energy or effort each person's willing to put into a certain campaign. So we do have various campaigns that are about signing on to a petition, which is a pre-written petition that Open Media has drafted, sometimes with help from other organizations such as Acorn or Cybera, or folks like that across Canada. But we do have other options like the Dear Miriam Monsef campaign that I was referring to earlier. That's an opportunity for folks to really tell their stories. There's no pre-written template. There's no guidance really. It's just what's your story and how would you tell it? And we have a box where you can type in your question, or we do have, or sorry, not your question, your story. We do also have with that campaign an option to phone in, and you can find that on the campaign website as well. So you can phone in. It actually goes directly to my voicemail inbox, so I would be the one listening to your story, and I would be able to share it from there. So there's different ways to get involved, but when it comes down to it, as an individual, the more folks that you can talk to about the issue and really just get the issue going in your circles and in your neighborhoods, I think personally, like that is the most powerful action, because at the end of the day, you have a representative in Parliament, and that representative is listening to the folks that are in their riding. And so when you make it a conversation with your neighbors, and whether that's online or offline, I think that's going to have the biggest impact. So you can do that through open media, or you can do that on your own. But I think like just no matter what, just getting that conversation going is probably the best place to start.
Thank you. Thank you.
Erin, could you give the website address again? And just so you've said the word open media, but could you just clarify again what open media means?
Absolutely. So you can head to our website, which is openmedia.org. And what Open Media does is we are a nonprofit advocacy organization that fights for a free and open internet for all. And we operate on three main pillars, and those are free expression, privacy, as well as access. And so this conversation really focuses heavily on access, and within that we consider affordability to be an issue of access as well. But in general, when it comes to this kind of stuff, we really are just fighting for everyone to have the same internet that the best of us enjoy in Canada. You know, the people that are considered like the ones who receive the best services from telecom, who we think that, you know, everyone should receive the same services from telecom, regardless of where you are, who you are, and everyone should be able to afford it. So that's where we're focused on that.
Chris, you had a question, yeah?
Yes. I'd like to say that at Britannia, there's a computer room. However, the senior center at Britannia has been closed since March, which means I'm sure that the majority of seniors that participate at the senior center at Britannia, and maybe others as well, have not had any access currently. I'm so aware of how much it costs. I'm on the guaranteed income supplement as well, and fortunately I have a little bit more of an income, but it's very costly to have the equipment, and and this is in the city of Vancouver. This is so. I certainly get that the rural areas are even more disadvantaged because of the lack of service, as well as the same barriers in terms of cost and that kind of stuff. But I think it's really clear from this pandemic that there are so many people who really will not have had access probably to anything since March because of the lack of access through senior centers.
Marion, did you have a comment?
Yes, I had to go off, but I found this really, really fascinating and really interesting. So thank you, Penny and Charlotte, for organizing it. And I agree with Chris. You know, we have computers for seniors to use at the 411 Senior Center, but people haven't been able to use them since the pandemic. I just want to say a couple things. The 411 Senior Center, we're working on it, and we have a Seniors Issues Committee that's actually meeting next week. And one of the issues on our agenda is a digital divide. So I think. And people are welcome to join the committee. So if you're interested, you know, you can email me or somebody, and we can get you on. But it's also really clear that although, you know, people like David and Patsy are doing amazing and hard and great work, that we should look at working with the BC Poverty Reduction and with the open media, because we all have the same issues. That's it.
Yes, definitely the panel has shown the benefit of collaboration and the need to collaborate, because they're talking about possibly even a longer closure for senior centers, or making us more dependent on remote media. So getting in that money that you mentioned in 2019 that was supposed to help get universal internet. Is there any way that we can weigh in on or contact the person that's dealing with that?
Is that a question for provincially?
Yes.
Yeah. So, like provincially, it's Michelle Mongal and the Ministry of Jobs and Infrastructure, and then but we've identified 13 ministries that actually ought to be concerned with this issue, either because access to the internet is crucial to access the services of those ministries. And including, for example, the Ministry of Housing, because one of the things that we'll advocate for is for $10 a month affordable internet to be built in to all forms of nonprofit and affordable housing in BC. So looking at it, kind of a paradigm shift, beginning to look at it as essential as hot water or a stove or a fridge or heat to a home. And really advocating for that. So I can send you the list, Charlotte, if you want, the list of the 13 ministries that we identified that we're going to advocate to for this, because it really should be a cross-government mandate, a part of our poverty reduction strategy, but also the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Mental Health and Addictions. It concerns really access to almost all government services in BC at this time. And I think just to mention too that everything we're doing very much ties into the federal campaign, because BC Acorn is in our working group. So it's very much like we want to support the federal campaign. And then in the meantime, really lobby British Columbia to come in with the money we know we have to take away that barrier of affordability, while continuing to keep that fire lit under our federal government to really take the responsibility that they should. So there's a balance there to strike around what we should, for our emergency response here provincially, and then also keeping the fire lit federally for the big picture. So I
have a comment similar to Sylvie's. Could you share your website again, or ways? Because as you said, individually people might want to write letters, but if they could contact you about either letters you already have written or, particular campaigns or things that they could join, that would be very helpful.
Next week there'll be more options provincially, I think.
So Viveka, do you want to just say what your website is again?
Oh, yes, sure. Nothing is up yet because it would come out next week. But I will put it here.
And say it as well.
And bcpovertyreduction.ca. It's kind of a mouthful, sorry. There.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you again, Penny. Do you have any closing statements or encouragement you'd like to say to our listeners?
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who came to talk very much indeed. I really appreciate what you've had to say, and I think that it's kind of connected some of the issues as well, which in a very important way. I want to say one thing. I was involved with POVnet when it first started in 1997. And at that time, the internet was fairly new, certainly for nonprofits and for anti-poverty activists and advocates. I'm finding that actually the digital divide is worse now than it was in 1997. Because in 1997, people did have ways of talking to each other, and the internet was a useful resource. Now, it's the only way you can get services that you are entitled to, and you're left out in a much bigger way than you were in 1997 when POVnet started, which was like 20 years ago now. So it's really important that we keep the pressure on. And I think that if we can share those websites with everyone who was here today, as well as with the 411 Seniors Issues Group, maybe we can start working, communally to, whoops, what did you have to say? Yeah, and Anne says we need access and skills with the internet in order to improve access and skills. Yes, which is certainly true. Yeah, let's just keep talking. I mean, this is a really important issue.
And I'm going to be, talking about this issue. We're sharing the information with this Friday morning Speak Up, Listen Up, Act Upon show, because there are so many connections between poverty and income with seniors and college students. And so if we get onto the same deck and we, join these campaigns for advocacy, join these awareness campaigns, and hold the government accountable as well as private industry. Like you said, it's worse now. If you make a call to anyone, you get music, ads, promotions. So I think we can all, as consumers of those different things, send letters to their consumer affairs or whatever that we want to hear a human. This has been Powered by Age, an age-friendly, senior-led podcast for September the 10th, 2020.